Please take a seat very quickly. We will start now. We have only 1 hour to discuss about very interesting calls on cities mission, and I would like to say that I would like to thank very warmly the organizer to invite me to this session as a member of the Cities Mission Board, and I'm also pleased to co-moderate this session with Yannick Bousse from CINEA. Yannick is a project advisor in charge of projects on integrated transport and cities, and particularly project design within the Civitas initiative and the climate neutral and smart cities mission. And now Yannick will present the expectation of the European Commission on this call on unleashing the innovation potential of public transport and introduce you the speakers. Please, Yannick, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Françoise. And also for myself, welcome everyone to this session on Unleashing Innovation Potential of Public Transport. Before going into our presentations from our speakers, I would like to say a few words about the expectations from ourselves from the European Commission for these projects. As you can see here on the slides, what we are really looking for from these two projects, in the first sense, we wanted them to increase the share of public transport by increasing the model split of public transport by 30% in these cities which were involved in these projects, in the living labs involved in the projects, compared to the baseline which was set at the beginning of the projects. We also particularly wanted them to increase user satisfaction with public transport by 25% compared to the baseline. And we were looking for also for them to to reduce emissions by accelerate the transition towards climate neutrality in the cities. A final point, a major point that we're looking for them is also to put in place policy frameworks for public transport which are in line with the sustainable urban mobility planning guidelines, and also a clearer commitment from the city authorities to implement these. Based on these objectives, we're able to select these two projects, and both share these common goals which we have, and that is to make public transport really the backbone of the urban mobility system by enhancing its efficiency, accessibility, and also its appeal of public transport. And this is happening in these projects through innovation, multimodal integration, and also the user acceptance of the innovations which they are implementing. So to discuss these topics, we have speakers here from both projects, from Upper and Spine. They will be making their presentations. Each of them have 15 minutes each. And following their presentations, we'll also have some time for questions and answers with yourselves. So with that, I would like to move to our first speaker, and that's Mircea Steriu from UITP. Mircea is representing the Upper project, and Mircea is a senior project manager at UITP, which is the International Association of Public Transport. He has extensive experience promoting the benefits of sustainable urban mobility and has been managing projects focusing on big data, mobility, electric bus implementation, mobility and urban planning, and he is also currently the coordinator of the Upper project. So Mircea, I would like to hand over to you.
Thank you very much, Yannick. Thank you very much, Françoise, and a big thank you to all of you for coming and being interested in the topic. So, as Yannick said, the Upper project is coordinated by UITP, the organization I represent. And we do have a very diverse consortium. We have 41 partners who are working together in Upper, and as you probably have heard already in various projects within this conference, in order for urban mobility to work successfully, you need a large ecosystem of actors. And to a large extent, this is what we are replicating within the constellation of partners that we have in our project. So on the one hand, we have operators and authorities who are either running the public transport services or organizing the services, making sure that they're doing the planning. We have consultancies, we have technology providers who are making available and doing the research on the data platforms that are being used to support the planning. We have research institutes to look into the new ways of nudging towards more sustainable behavior, because this is one of the important aspects that our projects are trying to address in this call. And then, of course, we have a group of important network-based organizations to make sure that the results that we obtain from these projects get to be replicated and scaled up as much as possible. So what do? As Yannick mentioned already, the idea is to respond to the calls, to the objectives of the calls, to help cities reduce climate neutrality. We all know that the population living in European cities is due to grow, despite the overall population in Europe being in decline. We will have more and more of our people living in cities. So we know that we need to achieve a fundamental change in terms of how cities operate in order to make sure that we reach our climate neutrality goals. And we need to also make sure that the people who live in these cities live and breathe a cleaner air. So that's why we're trying to reduce emissions overall, and also to improve air quality. And then, of course, given that these projects are dealing with urban mobility and with public transport, we need to make sure that people, once using the public transport services and sustainable mobility, they're also satisfied with them. So one of the main objectives that we're trying to reach is to make sure that when people are using a bus or a metro or a shared bicycle that is done in an integrated way with them, they will also come back and use them again and again. Only that is the way of really reaching our objectives. And then, of course, the work that we're doing in the cities of Upper is based on a combination of measures which are looking to push people away from private vehicles and pulling them towards sustainable actions. We have 78 measures which are being implemented in the cities, and then we have a measure support toolkit which includes 7 digital-based tools which will become available towards the end of the project as well. The work that we're doing is being implemented in 10 cities. You have them on the map. 5 living labs, 5 twinning cities. I have to say that in terms of the level of ambition that they're trying to implement, the 10 are working together as a group overall. So. We are a 4-year project, as you might have seen on the first slide. We have completed the first 2 years of the project. It's going to be running until the end of December 2026. And even though some of the measures are, of course, being tested right now, they are operational, I'm very happy to be able to present a few of the measures that we're doing. But then, of course, just running headfirst and trying to implement something is quite unlikely to yield very, very good results. So basically, the first thing that we needed to do, and I think this in and of itself is a key result that comes out of our project, is the methodology for how to really understand what is going on the ground. So from that point of view, we try to make sure that we address the motivations and the types of travels which are being taken by diverse user groups. So we need to make sure that you don't treat everybody who lives in the city as a monolith, and you try to understand and customize the trips to their needs. We try to understand what's available on the ground as well, and then we did an overview of the SUMPs which have been already put in place, because of course the cities were selected based on their existing commitments to improve sustainable mobility. Then, based on this analysis, we fine-tuned the measures. We identified any of the requirements, be they legal, be they operational, be they in terms of procuring equipment, or sometimes even acquiring the skills within the various organizations which are needed in order to implement this. In order to make sure that the citizens get to be involved, and we increase the level of replicability of the measures as well as public acceptance, we have already run a series of 10 serious games, one in each of the city, where we use them as co-creation methods to make sure that citizens and specifically some of the overlooked user groups are involved in the process. We also ran a series of hackathons, again under the idea to bring input as much as possible from the user community, from the people who live and use public transport and sustainable mobility within the cities. We try to get their own input into this. We ran a series of thematic workshops, making sure that once the cities had a good idea about what they wanted to do, they also get feedback from the experts, which are part of our consortium. And then we ran city-to-city cluster pairing missions wherever they had measures which were common or that were addressing the same challenges. We tried to make sure that they also learned from each other. Finally, I mentioned earlier that the 7 IT-based support tools from Upper will be available at the end of the project. Now, of course, what we have done already in these first 2 years is following the same process of understanding what are the requirements, understanding what are the legal needs for these. We already published the first draft, the working versions of these tools, and as I am speaking now, the partners within the cities are working together with the technical developers to actually test these and to make sure that when the end of the project comes, the tools would be ready and we can have a good product plan or a good exploitation plan that would be behind them. Now, in terms of the measures themselves, as I said, there are 78 of them, and what we're trying to do is to work on to use them to work on the actual levers which our research has shown that convince people to consistently use sustainable mobility services, which are improving the reliability of what you have there. So if you are expecting to get a shared bicycle, you know that it's there. If you are expecting that a bus comes, it does come when the board tells you that it's supposed to come. Resilience towards various events. For example, if you had the road crash, if you have roadworks, you're still able to, as a citizen, to rely on the service. Accessibility. We need to make sure that everybody, regardless of their functional disabilities, potentially, are able to use services reliably. And then, of course, we need to make sure that that sustainable mobility services do not bring external don't bring negative externalities into the system. So you need to make sure that public transport contributes to road safety and to make sure that people feel also secure while using the services. And of course, you've probably understood that the gamut of measures that we're running are working at different levels. And we call these the 5 innovation axes, which are looking on the mindset and culture of the people using it. We're looking on urban mobility planning, the ecosystem of services which are available, looking at how cities and road authorities are managing the road network, and also looking at democratic governance, making sure that the various types of users and groups within the cities are being taken on board. So Going one step more in depth to that, what we have looked, based on the proposals that the cities have made for the measures, was to identify the groups under which we have commonalities. So we have several measures which are dealing with campaigns, several measures which are dealing with incentivization. We try to, based on these commonalities, to create groups where the cities could learn from each other and from the external partners who are involved in the project. In terms of the support toolkit with the 7 tools, we are largely right now in the monitoring stage, where we're looking at how the cities are using the tools in order to support them in the measure implementation. And the idea will be to scale them up, and then, as I said, at the end of the project, make sure that the tools themselves can be applicable somewhere else. So, as I said, midterm-wise, we have already completed our diagnostic of where we are. The U tools are being completed, and the second version is in testing. We do know what the measures need in terms of requirements and development. So most of these steps have been taken already, and we are continuing. We are ongoing with the demonstration plan from the 10 cities, making sure that at the same time we facilitate exchanges of good practice. Now, I do realize that I'm running out of time, and because of that, I do not have the photos of every one of the cities and every one of the measures that we have implemented. I just want to make sure that you understand, even though we're still 2 years out from the end of the project, what we have done already has an impact, a real-life impact on what people experience in these cities. So, for example, in Lisbon, we already have the Navegante app, which is the app that's being used by citizens to be able to plan their public transport trip. It was improved as part of the Upper project, and just last month it was selected as App of the Year in Portugal. Also, school children in 5 of the Lisbon parishes, if you know the administrative breakdown of Lisbon. Children in 5 of these parishes, school children, are able to have safer journeys to school thanks to the work that we've done in Upper. For the city of Leuven, another one of our twinning cities, one of the measures that will be implemented this year is implementing a socially inclusive bike sharing scheme to make sure that benefits and support for people in the city doesn't just focus on classic public transport, but also focuses on the integration with the other modes. In Rome, I don't know if there are any rugby fans around here, but as you know, there are this year, the Six Nations tournament is going to have 3 games, which are hosted at the Olimpico Stadium in Rome. You have the captain of the rugby team, which is up, and his face is on every single poster possible beforehand, urging fans to come and use public transport and shared mobility to get to the stadium. That is also complemented by roadworks which have taken place in the Casal Monastero, so a tiny little bit towards the outside of the center, where the entire road environment was changed, and we have 30 kilometers an hour zones to make sure that on the one hand we reduce private car traffic, but also we make sure that the environment is friendly towards pedestrians. An example that Françoise will be very happy to hear. You're waiting, yes, exactly. So the Olympic Games in Paris were a great success last year, partly because the transport worked well. Okay. The partner who built the MAS system is part of the Upper project. So we want to make sure that this app itself, it was developed for the games, and it was a special algorithm that was used in order to make sure that the mobility planning around the event did go according to plan. but we're trying as part of Upper to make sure that this is not a digital white elephant from the games, and we actually learn from the algorithm, we learn from the data and from all of the flows that, of people who clearly we're happy about how the games work, to make sure that we learn and we use this in other events. In Valencia, we have works on a new BRT corridor, which is going on. And on top of that, you know, those QR codes, which you're trying to scan when you're at the stop to be able to see when the next bus is coming. One of the initiatives that the citizens will be able to, are able to use already, and we're trying to improve this even further. We are using technology which allows that code to be scanned from, well, basically here until the end of the room, so that it's able, it is usable for people who have problems of sight, or in order to make sure that they can also benefit from these initiatives. In Mannheim, we have plants and greenery which are already installed, and making sure that we have less, that the public transport network actually helps to green the city, to make it more livable. In Hanover, we have bike towers, which are making sure that once you get out of the train station, you are able to go to go and pick up your bike, thus helping create multimodal sustainable chains. In Oslo, we have a B2B application which is helping people living in housing cooperatives to make sure that they benefit together with their public transport service from shared mobility services as well. Congestion-sensitive parking is being implemented in Thessaloniki, making sure that we do not use the valuable space in the city center only for parking cars. In Budapest, we will have better multimodal planning services, which are highlighting the sustainable mobility choices for citizens. Now, what do we want to do? Of course, in the next 2 years, hopefully, if I get invited again, I will be able to report on the progress that these measures have made and give you the evaluation of what they have brought. But what do we expect? As we said, we want sustainable mobility to be at the heart of the innovation sites, and we want to make sure that inclusivity is the right pathway, and that once services are being thought, they are available to everybody. We want to make sure that people, both in the city center but also at the outskirts, are really able to benefit from these services. And then what we want to make sure is that public transport, given that its increased capacity and its ability to bring people together to the destination, will remain the backbone of sustainable mobility. So with that, I want to thank you. All of the information that I've talked about and many more are available on our website, LinkedIn channel, YouTube, so all of the regular things. But I'll be happy to listen to questions as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mircea. I see then at the moment, so as you described, you're basically midway, halfway through the project, more or less, and I see the second version of the tools, the 7 tools that you were showing, are being implemented now and being tested. The demonstrations are, and the data collection and evaluation is on their way. So indeed, we look forward to seeing more results, and also from the cities and in next year's conferences. And very interesting also the perspective from a communication campaign perspective, getting in Italy the captain of the rugby team involved for the Rome Living Lab, and also the app in Lisbon also sounds like something that also should be very surely promoted as App of the Year in Portugal. So thanks a lot for that. Next, we'll move then on to our next project, which is Spine. And for that, we'll have Lucia Cristea presenting. And Lucia is the Managing Director of European Integrated Projects. She has more than 35 years of experience in designing and implementing sustainable transport and mobility projects. She worked previously for 20 years for the public transport operator in Bucharest. And after that, Lucia established European integrated projects as the aim to enhance the dialogue between different actors involved in the mobility field, working with cities and organizations across Europe. So, Lucia, I would hand over to you.
Everything is moving. Mircea didn't say that Italy won Saturday in the first game in a very bad condition, whether it was raining. I live in Italy, so this is why I know. Well, thank you very much, Yannick, for that presentation. I will try to speed up. Many of the things that Mircea said, I will say, so I try to skip the common part, because this is very a project that has been funded in the same call. We have the same objectives. We don't have many, different, let's say, barriers. We work together and we face the same things and we have the same objectives and we try to address them in a different way, but we have, let's say, many commonalities. Now, at a glance, Spine is, again, a 48 months project. We are at the middle of the project at this moment. Not too many results to report, but as Mircea said, we hope that at the end of the project, you will invite us again and we report back what was the success of the project. We have 39 partners, a large project that mixes, in case of Spain, the public authorities, public transport operator or agencies with universities and, let's say, research institutes, academia, and so on, and consultancy, and also the, let's say, NGOs. So I think it's a very interesting partnership with working with 11 cities for lead and 7 twin. We'll try to deep dive a bit into the lead cities today, but I'll tell you first about the Spine approach. What we have done until now, basically, we try to understand the cities. What is the situation in the cities? What are the transport systems? What are the problems with the transport systems? What is the relationship between different, let's say, ideas with that we have to implement, or the solutions that we like to implement in the project with, are they linked with the strategic plans of the project, and so on, of the cities, apologies. And basically, this was a very, very important, let's say, actions. We started to develop a set of digital tools. This is a very, very digital, let's say, project. I'm not a technical person, so if you ask me about it, I have no idea. But what is very important, these digital tools help, let's say, public transport operators to perform a better service. We'll have public, let's say, authorities to create new strategies and policies to, let's say, to develop services, better services for the citizens and visitors. And all these tools, what is very interesting, are somehow integrated between themselves, or partners are trying to integrate them. As I said, we work with 4 lead cities, Antwerp, Bologna, Tallinn, and Las Palmas, and I'll tell you a bit more about them in a minute. And 7 twinning cities, Dinia, Šibenik, Heraklion, Valladolid, Žilina, Rouen, and Barreiro, close to Lisbon. And of course, we are very much interested in how we can communicate activities done at local level, but also at the project level, and I'll tell you a bit later about this, how we can transfer different knowledges, experiences, processes, and why not some measures between the cities, and how we ensure the viability of these measures. And of course, we will look also at the policy framework, trying to understand what happened in the project and how we can transform the recommendations the project generates in new policies, and address them at local level, but also at the European level, hopefully. Antwerp. I think if you were earlier in the meeting, Michel, I don't know if he is in. Oh, hello. Hello. He did a fantastic presentation of Antwerp. Some of the aspects that he mentioned are part of Spine too, elements of that let's say, the general plan that Antwerp is doing. I'm not making a point that you are here, but Antwerp is a very interesting, vibrant city, and he knows that I'm always quoting them a lot. Why? Because they tried to create these umbrella mechanisms, where everything happening in the sustainable mobility is under Smart Waste to Antwerp, especially in the complex situation of transforming the transport system in the city. Very interesting also, Antwerp is a port city. And again, this provides another layer of complexity of it, and it's very interesting how both entities are working together to create a new, let's say, transport system which is sustainable for both, let's say, visitors, inhabitants, but also those ones that are doing business in the city. Now, concretely, what they are doing are these multi-modal hubs and info screens, particularly creating accessibility of the users to the system. I'm not entering in the details, but what I'm trying to say here is the efforts of our colleagues in creating this, let's say, info screens. It's a lot of work put there, or the level of the letters, the type of letters that they are using, the colors they are using, having in mind also the accessibility, so to be very easy to, let's say, for the users to grasp let's say, the information they are providing. Very important is the multimodal journey planner application, and again, it's an innovative aspect because it's organized inside the authority. And this is a very interesting point because they want to control what are the streets, what are the areas that have been, will be used, compared with Waze. Yeah, I'm from Bucharest, and my apartment block is on an alley, and Waze puts you the car on an alley, it's a service road, it's impossible. So I think we have to discuss this aspect at a higher level where this, let's say, journey planners and routing applications creates these solutions. And of course, they are creating different prioritization at, let's say, in different junctions through reorganizing them. I'm going to the city of Bologna. It's a beautiful city, historic city in Italy. Both Antwerp and Bologna are mission cities, I forgot to mention. Amazing, let's say, activities in Bologna. Very important to mention that everything is happening in Bologna is supported by a very strong political view, and political vision. And all the measures that are implemented there are supported. They probably, it's a very known case, that nowadays, 1 year ago, actually, it was implemented a 30-kilometer scheme on a large scale. This is not necessarily a spine, let's say, measure, but is impacting, and supporting the measures that Bologna is doing. Results are emerging and are quite, let's say, successful. Now, in spine, Bologna tries en masse, through digital, let's say, integration of solutions. And what very interesting is this micro-incentives campaign, done with the support of one of the technical partners. And this is not only the technology put in practice to understand the behavior or to support the change in mobility behavior. Very interesting to mention. Not on the screen, but very important to mention that Bologna works very much and invests very much in working with stakeholders and with citizens. Therefore, they have a specialist partner, a facilitator of this dialogue, because it's not easy to just say, okay, I'm a public authority, I want to talk with somebody. You have to align, let's say, the language, you have to align the way you speak with them, the message has to be similar, so just to create this, let's say, efficient dialogue and, let's say, good dialogue with the stakeholders, they involved a specialized partner. Very, very interesting that are emerging a lot of positive results for this. And when we are invited to the next round of conference like this, we will tell you more, let's say, concrete results. In Tallinn, we know it's a very interesting city because it's, it's very digital. And the entire country is digital. When you go there, everything is digital. And they are also involving using apologies, implementing different digital solutions at multimodal hubs, as info screens, as you can see there, and facilitating the access to the public transport. So basically, it's a way to, let's say, change a bit the behavior, give a lot of information, easy access to let's say, to the public transport. Complementary, they are using cargo bike renting service. Again, very interesting for a city like Tallinn. We know that the weather conditions sometimes is not very good in the winter, so we'll see how it will work. And of course, they want to monitor let's say, the quality of the air with these environmental sensors. We will report back on the success of these measures. Las Palmas, don't think that it's only tourist destinations. People are living there. I encourage you to go there and for a holiday, and to experience the public transport system and what they are doing. I'm working with them for a previous round of Civitas from Civitas destinations, and as you remember, and they are continuing to pump a lot of, let's say, effort in creating a very sustainable public transport systems. Once again, not only for residents, but for tourists and, let's say, visitors. In Las Palmas, also it is a topography problem. It's a geography problem. So therefore, they are trying to create a series of multimodal hubs. As you can see, there are 3 of them. And to reorganize in this way the public transport and to become much more efficient, in areas that are sometimes very difficult to access. Of course, they want to introduce green light for public transport prioritization, as you can see there. And also they have a very successful, let's say, scheme with Bicicleta, or if I correctly remember the name, I can't see very clear the name there, but it started in destination and is rollout now, and this is integrated in these hubs. I think this is a good exploitation example of previous project. Now, in terms of cross-project cooperation, of course, we work very closely with Mircea, not only that we are Romanians and we have a nice banter together, but we do actions together, yeah? We do, as you can see there, we have 3 webinars we have done so far. I think my colleagues put on a QR code at the end, and you can, let's say, access them. They are online on YouTube or somewhere, in a space. We are working also with Civitas projects, with other Civitas projects in other clusters. One of the webinars that we have organized, it was also with Amigos project, which I'm proud that I'm part of it, but also with the Net Zero. So I think it's very important to have this collaboration with let's say, different platforms that we are involved. The cities are involved in, and create these interactions and exchange of experiences. Now, we do not have concrete results. They are emerging, as I said, the results. So I put expected results, what we want, and I put it in a general way. But we will have figures and, let's say, concrete data that we will present with you. Very important, this array of digital solutions that we are, let's say, creating in the project. And what is interesting, they are tailored for the city's needs, with all the, nitty-gritty that comes from it, data sharing, availability of data, collaboration and so on, but it's happening. This is very, very important. At local level, addressing the behavior, there are lots of campaigns and addressed to the citizens, but also lots of co-creating activities with different stakeholders to jointly, let's say, decide some of the measures. Very interesting. We organized something very interesting in Gdynia. Recently, it has a name, now because of the time, I forgot it. It's not hackathon, it's something, scavenger hunt. Am I correct? Yes, scavenger hunt. It's very clever thing that it was organized. And of course, what we want, our project name is Spine, it's in the call, it was the backbone. We want to, let's say, reposition public transport in the, let's say, in the transport offering in our cities, and to provide, let's say, to others information about this. Now, what are the wider impacts? I put generic ones here because we tend to talk about certain KPIs like this, but the project finishes in 2 years' time, but many, let's say, impacts will be seen only afterwards. And from my point of view is this data situation, how cities are working with data to create new mobility solutions. But very interesting how they integrate different ones. In the case of Spine, apologies, there are some public-private partnerships. It was discussion earlier, if I'm not mistaken, but we have to take into account private-private partnerships, because some technical partners are providing the same, are working together to provide solutions for a city. Business and operational models, that will generate new governance models, and I dare to say here is the capacity of the cities to create partnerships, because sometimes it's very difficult to create a partnership between a public authority and not only a private entity, but even a research institute. It's very difficult to align the, let's say, the communication between them. And of course, there are collaboration across sectors. When we are talking about mobility, we have to break any walls between different sectors. And we try to glimpse on that. I'm late and I will be finishing quickly. Health benefits, of course, we know that is individual benefits, by health benefits for this, but it's for the city. But also societal impact, we are taking very seriously the gender aspects in our project, and in how, let's say, women are treated in public transport, and we have a behavior model behavior change model that we realize with some of our colleagues, but also the vulnerable groups, nobody is left behind, and we create everything for everybody, for all. So I think I'll stop here. It is a scan me there, but my colleagues, you have more information about all the cities and all the things that we are doing, and apologies for the extra time. Thank you.
Thank you, Lucia. You mentioned there, and you brought also the attention to Antwerp, and in the previous session, indeed, we had the Scale-Up project, and there in the Scale-Up project, I've been working on these aspects of multimodal hubs and wayfinding and the multimodal journey planner, and I think this is a good way, or a good example then also of how to create, say, this kind of project pipeline from one project to another, that the cities can put these complementary objectives in different projects to meet their long-term goals, basically, of what they're trying to achieve. So I think this is a good example of this here, basically. So that were both of our presentations. And thank you to our speakers. And now I'd like to hand over to Françoise from Ile-de-France Europe for a question and answer round. Françoise is a senior policy advisor at Ile-de-France region, representation here in Brussels. I think particularly for this session here, what is interesting is to know is that she's also the vice president of ERTRAC and also a member of the CICAM European Partnership, where she is representing the public authorities. And as it was already mentioned, I believe, a member of the mission board, particularly following these public transport projects. So thank you.
Thank you, Yannick. Thank you to you both for your excellent presentation. You're right, Yannick. I think that we need today is a pipeline of projects to feed the city's mission flagship, because this result can support the decision maker to design their ongoing strategies and accelerate these ongoing strategies to reach the climate neutrality by 2030. So now it's time to Q&A session. So do not hesitate now to ask your question to both speakers. Yeah, I see one and. In the yeah.
Thank you. Dirk Lauwers from the Antwerp University, so also familiar with the situation in Antwerp. I have a rather general question, and I suppose that it is maybe too early for the two presenters to answer it yet, but the ambition of plus 30% of passengers in public transport, it's really very, very ambitious. Can you already give some reflection if this is a realistic ambition or not, and if it is shared with the cities that are participating this high ambition? That's the first question. And related to that, so the upper consortium, they present 78 measures. Some of them are push measures, others are pull, maybe also combination. Can you give an indication of what measure, and maybe also the other group can do, what of these measures are the most effective?
To increase the model share of public transport, right? It was the question. Okay.
Sorry for that. Thank you. That's very good and also very challenging. So, as I said, the first thing that we did was to have the diagnostic of the public transport situation, and clearly in cities that have been doing very well already. So we had, for example, Oslo, where in the city center we already were at over 50% of trips within the city that are done by public transport. That being said, when you start looking into the fine details, there are always challenges, and there will always be groups in which you can improve. So one of the ways that we have done this, for example, is to look, to stay with the example of Oslo, two of their measures are looking specifically at a DRT system which is aimed towards aged individuals. So it's a system that's still run by Ruta, but normally they are not part of the let's say classic public transport system, at least not always, and now we're looking at how to improve that specific system to make sure that they are included in the system. It all works a little bit in the mobility as a right concept, where we need to make sure that services, once they are available, they actually can serve the full population. To go to the other end of the age spectrum, that's why we're looking in both Lisbon, as I mentioned, but also we have initiatives in Mannheim, sorry, to create services where it's easier for school children to use regular public transport services. So we get them used to the service and making sure that they are also able and capable to use the system initially with someone following them, of course, because you have to operate in a certain legislation, but you create good habits which will then be useful for the future.
I don't know, I have to press this one, or you can hear me, no? No? You can hear me? Okay, great. Great question. You know, if I put my hat of public transport, Yannick mentioned that I had about 20-something years in public transport. To move 1% the needle, you know, and model split, you know, for public transport is a huge effort. So 30% is quite a lot. But this call and this ambition it's very important, because this call comes after the COVID, and we all know that the public transport sector has been very much hit by the COVID situation, and it's not it's not a secret that the public transport authorities and local and regional and sometimes national governments made a lot of efforts to support the public transport to survive during that period. Now, that period changed a bit the behavior. Everybody went back to the cars or individual modes to transport. We want to bring people back to public transport, and probably maybe we do not achieve 30% in each of the cities, that are like this, but we want to move the needle very high. Yeah, this is our ambitions. This is why we have a lot of, let's say, solutions. As like Mitra said, they have 76. We have more cluster ones. We have about 19, if I'm not mistaken. And we try to, combine, apologies, we have to combine not only the digital, the technical solutions, but with mechanisms to bring people on board like this in public transport. And also to make let's say, partners in the project responsible to, let's say, create services, public transport services, and to support public transport services, to understand the situation and to support them with new knowledge, new, let's say, ideas, innovations, and so on. In the previous session, it was the new mobility services. We want to integrate this one. Basically, we want to bring people out of the cars, not from other services. So we want to integrate a bit. I'm not sure if you are satisfied with my answer, but the fact is that it's important to move the needle. So we have to go and move the needle. This is the moment, at this moment, we are now. Thank you.
Thank you. Indeed, this call was launched just after the COVID, and as you remember, mobility was particularly impacted by the health crisis. So the call came to support public authorities and cities to increase public transport. Another question? Yes, Guido.
I can. Thanks. Hi, Guido Sacchetto, DG Research Innovation. Just a question, maybe, I don't know if it's really exactly what you're doing, but I was wondering, you're doing big projects with a lot of actors, of course, and thanks again for the presentation. Of course, we know that the solution has to be based on the user's needs, and basically now you're focusing on citizens. But you're talking about big cities with also a lot of tourists. And I was wondering, are you including in some ways also this approach, and how to involve the tourists in this kind of dialogue that we saw, for example, in Bologna is going on, and you're doing in other ways. Are you approaching this as well, or is it something really difficult to be tackled as you're focusing on citizens? Thank you.
No, I can jump in on this one, yes. Thank you for your question. I mentioned in my presentation the city of Las Palmas that was in a project called Destination, Civitas Destination, and that focus of the project was basically bringing, creating, let's say, a transport system that is friendly for tourists. It was a tourist destination. The fact is that we have to talk with the tourism sector. Yes, and it's not easy, you're right. But if we create some, let's say, some measures such as going to the hotels and give them, different, let's say, information about public transport, even tickets and so on like this. We work with them also to put like Cicletta, you saw, they are sometimes around hotels, and create some incentives. And we do hope that all these measures that we are doing, this app, because tourism doesn't start at the destination. Tourism starts when you start looking for a holiday, yes? And maybe you find out this app, like we go in Antwerp, for example, we always know this application there, and we are using it to navigate the city. So we hope that tourists will have this access to the application that once again could, let's say, tickle, let's say, allow me to say this, tickle their, let's say, sustainability focus, And you saw in Bologna they have these measurements. And we know that sustainability came from tourism, When you go at a hotel, you have the green label. That one was created for the first time, as a concept. And I think we have a set of measures that we do this one. And it's not the focus per se of this project, but we take into account, not only by acknowledging that there are some categories of users, such as tourists or visitors, we consider them in how we package the services in our cities. I hope I can address your question. Thank you for it.
Irshai.
Yep, thank you very much. That's a very interesting question, and hopefully I have a few examples to respond to it. So to begin with, when we ran the diagnosis, one of the novel ways that we looked at researching how users experience public transport is called ethnography, which is looking at collecting and understanding what is the sentiment and what is the intensity of the sentiment as well towards various mobility services, but as done via internet comment boards, whether it's TripAdvisor, whether it's Twitter, at that point at least Twitter, Facebook, so the different services. And this comes as a very interesting way of complementing what is, let's say, the classic customer satisfaction survey, which is more focused, of course, on citizens. So what we've done in Upper is to take the results from these, present them to the cities, and then use this type of study into the refinement of the measures. Secondly, I mentioned already the MAS app for the Olympic Games. I'm not going to give a percentage because she will definitely know it better, but 90% of the people who used the app specifically for the Olympics were tourists. Okay, so that is also a way of looking, and I would say even if they were people who normally live in Paris, they would have different destinations. So those are going to be different as well. But also one of the things that we're learning from in Lisbon, one of their measures is looking at mobility management. In late 2023, and this was one of the first implementations that we had in Upper, they had the Youth Catholic Convention, all right, where several 100,000 people visited Lisbon specifically for this event, and the specific ticket category was created only for this. All right, so we're looking at these and everything. But on the other hand, going back to the cooperation, look, if I have the shared mobility app on the phone, because I'm a customer, when I go to a different city, they will know already. If I have the cooperation and marketplace within the city already, and the app is able to, so the mobility provider is able to see that I am there and provide their services in the new cities, they will work. All right, so obviously I live in Brussels. When I visited Rome for the rugby, I did get the notification to use share mobility for it. Okay, so this is a little bit how they work. Sometimes if you just create the right framework for the cooperation, other actors will be able to do it. So we need to try to not do everything all at once, but make sure that others are able to pick up the ball and carry it. I'll stop with the rugby references, okay?
No, thank you. Indeed, it's an interesting question. As a region, we have started to work for so many years on sustainable tourism mobility because it's a way to decrease the emission in our region and territories. And we will be, of course, happy to share the result of the Olympics because it was, of course, it was a success because we use innovation, digital tools to increase the modal share of public transport. So the innovation helped us to allow the tourists to use the public transport because we consider the tourist as a resident. And that's all. And we celebrate the new commissioner in charge of tourism and tourism to create this necessary synergy between these two worlds. What we observe that, we have to create links between the tourism sector and the mobility because nobody talks to each other today. So it's something that we have to do. The last question, I think. We are running out of time. Yes.
Yes, hi. I'm Peter Mattiasson. I come from the Icelandic Road and Coastal Administration. But as it happened, I was in Paris last summer. I didn't use the MAS. I didn't know about that. But I noticed, and I don't think I'm wrong, that they doubled the price for public transport. And I found that rather offensive. that they did that because I thought they were just taking my money. But still, the question is, doesn't price matter a lot to this push and pull thing you're trying to do?
The short answer is yes, it matters because budgets are not infinite, neither for public authorities nor for customers. It does matter, however, a little bit less than we would think. So the initiative from Tallinn that we have seen about free fare public transport, it does have an effect, of course. It did show a bounce in the number of trips, but the effect tends to level off. So really, from our experience, I mean, and here I'm speaking a little bit beyond the upper project, but everything that we found in it confirms this. The price, so customers will be more or less. So demand will be more or less price inelastic as long as the service is good. You will accept to pay a little bit more if you know that it takes you there. The problem comes if, for example, going back to push and pull, they're not going to work together if you stop people from entering with a car somewhere if you don't have an option to go there by public transport. On the other hand, it doesn't really matter if public transport is free if it doesn't take you places. So you need to find that specific balance.
Absolutely. Thank you for your question. I think it's an excellent question. And sometimes, you know, we look at the public transport price, but we have to look at the price of the other services, you know, other mobility services, you know, and then we can compare, you know, the price for public transport. This is first up, and Mircea correctly mentioned Tallinn. It's a scheme, but in Germany you have this scheme now that, you know, it's a certain, let's say, value of the journey. My point is, okay, you have a price, but always we have to have in mind that who is using? We are people that we are using. Mm-hmm. So we pay something for a quality. Yes, indeed, like Mircea correctly said, to take you from A to B, but the quality of the service is very important. Mm-hmm. I remember, and I'll give you apologies, I'm not giving you an example from Upper or Spine, but I'll give you an example from Bucharest when I work. 30 years ago, probably, I'm telling you, no, I'm exaggerating, probably 20 years ago, 25 or something like this, when we implemented a very modern, let's say, tram scheme, you know, in segregated way, new trams and so on. Excellent. People loved it. You know, why? Because offered the comfort, offered the, let's say, the speed, and offered the quality of the transport. This is very important, and they were ready to pay. And when we created the quality, let's say, survey at that time, you know, what the people said, users said, we want all the, let's say, public transport routes to be like that one. And this says something about the quality of the transport. And they are ready to leave the cars to use that public transport because of the quality. And I know that Mircea is a specialist here with the UITP and so on, but with the hat of, again, with the public transport, I'll give you another example about behavior. Because we talk about public transport, but in fact, we have to talk about behavior, how to bring people back to public transport. When we introduced again from Bucharest, I give you the example. When we introduced a measure to, let's say, to remodernize the bus fleet, you know, we changed the old obsolete, let's say, buses with new, at that time, DAF buses, very fancy like this. Oh, everybody, you know, in the company, in the public transport, oh, they will be destroyed. Everybody will like this, why you put these fancy buses? Because it will be destroyed. As soon as we put them on, you know, people use them and they cared about them because they realized that that one offered them the comfort, they gave them the satisfaction, they own them. So it's about how you, let's say, present the service to the end user. You know, they have to own the service. Sorry, I hope it addresses your question.
Thank you very much, Lucia, Mircea, for your presentation and response to questions. Thank you to the audience for the very good question. Unfortunately, at the end of this session, 1 hour to discuss innovation in public transport is definitely too short. We hope that next year we have more project results to present, and I would like to give the floor to Yannick for a short wrap-up. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Françoise. Yes. Just to wrap up for our session, I think we can see that our two projects, Upper and Spine, they're basically making their way to more efficient, sustainable, and also user-centered mobility systems. And what we can also see is that their work is not just about new technologies, but really it's also about fostering collaboration and also about rethinking our urban mobility strategies and our systems of urban mobility. And I think also the discussions that we've had reinforce that the future of public transport depends on such innovative ideas that we have in these projects. And this can include maybe going from data-driven solutions, but also on the other side of the spectrum, then more towards the commitment of putting people really at the heart of the transition that we have here. So I'd very much like to thank both of our speakers, and I'd also like to thank Françoise for our session so far. And please remember to visit the stands also now, because we will go now to our lunch break. And the next sessions will be starting at 1:30. So thanks a lot, everyone.